Lawyers of Reddit, at what point, when working for a defendant, did you realize, my client is a monster? A lot of years ago I used to work as a solicitor's representative. Cases go to Crown Court, barrister deals and I am there for paperwork, additional stuff with client etc. 70-something-year-old man had been in jail for 15 years for an assault on a child. Solicitor and barrister working on getting him released due to him getting clean reports from just about everyone. Guards took him out of jail to a dentist and as he entered the waiting room he saw two children and ran straight at them. Guards stopped him. 3 weeks later at court I was the one that sat him down in a room to explain that no, this isn't a hearing to release you. It is so you can be committed to a mental health secure facility for the rest of your life. He didn't take that well. I shed no tears. Not the client but my managing partner. The client was a senile 90-year-old man. He wanted to sell land worth a little less than $1 billion to some businessmen. Suffice to say there were men who wanted to take advantage of the situation. One such person, to my dismay, was our managing partner. The partner wanted to insert a provision that would have effectively funneled about 60% of the proceeds solely to him. You could see how his eyes gleamed at the mere mention of money. The provision got lost in the revisions. I was doing the revisions. I'm no longer part of that scummy firm. Ivan Millett, serial killer of backpackers in Australia, inspiration for Wolf Creek, was so dependent on inducing pain that when he couldn't hurt others, he turned to self-mutilation. He partially amputated a finger, used a plastic knife to saw through the bone, and put it in an envelope addressed to the High Court of Australia, all while maintaining his innocence. I'm shocked that a plastic knife was able to saw through a bone. Must have been a long and painful experience. Next level plastic surgery. I'm on the other side, but I've got a defendant who went to prison for starving 3 adopted children to the point that they needed weeks of hospitalization. Then got out of prison and married a guy with children so that she could start starving them. 2. Listening to her interview where she attempts to justify what she did to both sets of kids disturbed me more than any of the murder cases I've worked on. What was her justification? She did nothing wrong. She was just trying to help them be healthy and beautiful. She felt bad for the first set of kids because they needed her, etc. It wasn't my case, but I've seen the pictures. The first set of kids looked like Holocaust survivors. They were 4-5 and she had them completely brainwashed to think only she would ever love them. She was just trying to help them be healthy and beautiful. This lady sounds completely nuts. Did she ever get a psyche workup? We had a client try and enforce a post-employment restraint against a 19-year-old receptionist after she quit and started working for a competitor. The reason? He wanted to make her life hell because she wouldn't sleep with him. A creepy 57-year-old man. Him trying to sleep with her was the reason she quit. And surprisingly he didn't take our advice to discontinue his claim and so we ended up sending him elsewhere. See, this right here shows the one thing many different type of poop holes share. They don't know when to freaking stop. He could have been done for harassment, and he got away with it, but he had to keep going, not once thinking he'd done something wrong. My wife had a similar douchebag boss. She worked for a company that recruited nurses. They had a horribly written non-compete agreement that basically restricted you from working in the medical field for 5 years and within 500 miles. Too restrictive. She would also forge signatures by cutting and pasting in Adobe. So, wife eventually quits and works at a similar job. She had never signed the non-compete and we knew it. Well, we get a letter from her attorney with a signed non-compete. I called up the attorney. I told him that we were willing to take this controversy to trial. But in an act of good faith I wanted him to send me the original PDF file of the document and make the wet ink original available for inspection at his office and we could attempt to resolve this out of court. We never heard from him again, but my wife's current employer did. They threatened to sue them if they didn't fire her. Well, my wife then had to explain the situation to her new boss and their attorneys. Well, new company and old company had a mutual client. New boss felt he had an obligation. Just wanted to poach the jobs, to inform the client of the fraud allegations and advise them to do a full audit of the original records. They did and ended up ending their contract with wife's old company. We get a letter from a new attorney, this time threatening to sue and claiming millions in damages for divulging trade secrets. Call this new attorney and advise that the trade secrets were fraud and it was divulged through the course of pending litigation brought by his client. Never heard from them after that. I listened to a 911 call where the victim's throat was slit while on the call by our client. I will never forget her gurgling and sounding like she was dying. Somehow she ultimately lived through this, saying, "He killed me, he killed me." That is not something I ever wish to hear. I feel bad even after reading it. I listened to a video once of a 911 call with a guy in one of the Twin Towers as it collapsed on him. Years later it still haunts me at times. Physically hearing someone's last moments on Earth is absolutely haunting, especially when added to the sheer dread and desperation you can hear in their voice. I can't even fathom what the 911 operator felt. EMT here. It is surprising how accurate a patient's sense of impending dread can be. Many cases will literally say, "I'm dying now, I'm about to die," with what seems like a 45 chance of being accurate. Of course this is only anecdotal, though in training they say if your patient tells you they are about to die on you, they are about to try their damnedest. Burned out medic here. There needs to be a caveat to that info. There are two ways of saying that you're dying. There is the staticus dramaticus way of saying "I'm dying, oh Lord Jesus." I have had patients literally scream this at me over a hangnail. Then there is the cold stare statement of "I'm dying." It raises the hair on your neck, and what's worse is when you know they're right and there isn't shit you can do about it. I've had a SAR mission like this. Guy fell down a cliffside mountain biking on a single track, impaled by branch through his pelvis. We found him conscious and alert, and as we began devising a way to transport the patient with part of the branch still embedded, he very calmly said, "It's okay, I won't need help. Thank you for finding me so quickly," and passed away a few minutes later. He had written a note to his wife and daughter with a pen on his camelback. It was really heartbreaking to read. I think he was just relieved that his family would find closure in his death. Still bummed me out though. Sad face. Nurse here. I remember a patient I had that went into the fastest respiratory failure I've ever seen. Went to the bathroom completely fine. Came back and couldn't breathe. Went in to see what was going on. And the look on her face and in her eyes when I entered the room is something I'll never forget. She was at 50% and only getting worse. Was tubed and sent to the ICU. She improved and lived. A very scary moment. I'm so glad she pulled through. I'm not gonna lie, I was merely an environmental worker for a year in an urgent care, and the shit I have seen. But I cannot fathom how you'll handle your shit in scenarios like this. Humans wigging out in ways not normally seen, like eyeballs about to pop out, or have faces swollen and purple, other crazy shit. The UC I worked at was in the middle of a former horse field for a popular stable back in the day, and since it was fairly unknown in BFE, they only had legit minor shit and appointments most of the time. One time this young man was rushed in from a rodeo happening nearby with a rib puncturing his lung from being trampled by a bull. He was fading fast, and usually they sent people 2,530 sometimes 40 with bad traffic minutes away to the nearest hospital for severe shit because they weren't equipped to deal with invasive surgery like this. The primary care doc on call was a fucking hero. Doesn't even begin to describe her, it's so underwhelming of a term. She knew this kid was gonna croak if she didn't take decisive action. I don't know medical terms. I used to remember what it was, but basically she rigged a tube in the wound and refilled the lung and made a airbag of sorts that would keep him alive till they got him to the other hospital. His family was weeping like he was dead already, but exploded with joy when she came out to tell them he was stabilized. God, I wish I could remember the procedure name because it was amazing. She was cool as a cucumber the entire time, and so was most of the other nursing staff who came from former Earth. I couldn't comprehend the level of cool these people were here. Oh, and I think the kid was conscious through the whole thing, if I remember correctly. I'll go ahead and say it. When I practiced family law and criminal defense, I trusted and believed my criminal defense clients 100x more than my divorce or custody clients. The worst monsters are the people who manipulate minor children for custody reasons. F them. Luckily I'm out of that area of law, hopefully for good. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm only 16, so I hope you didn't cringe from the editing. I hope we can get to 50,000 subscribers because I wouldn't be here without all of you. So thank you so much for your time and energy, and please subscribe.